This podcast is given to you by Arloka David Smith, teacher and founder of the DharmaMind Buddhist group. For more information, please go to dharmamind.net.
This week I've focused on pulling together the what constitutes the teachings, the practice of this group, which fall into two sort of very clear, definable, identifiable boxes, I've said the word, of the pillars and blue sky, white cloud, and although the image is distinctly different, and also one is much more, should we say, one is very normal everyday stuff, the human makeup, the human condition, a very sort of exoteric, very understandable things that you can put your finger on, which is the exoteric, which is the conventional, the logical, the identifiable, and the other one, which is also like that to some extent, but it also takes you beyond the conditioned, is pointing beyond the conditioned, the blue sky, and bringing the refinement of the white cloud, and merging with the blue sky. The blue sky is pointing directly to your true nature. So that aspect of the teaching is taking you beyond the conditioned, beyond your everyday mind and existence and your familiarity, and introducing you to what is your true nature and the more esoteric aspects of the practice. Esoteric means that you have some concepts, but those concepts are always taking you beyond the concepts, so you let them go, so that you discover that part of you that's not a part of the conceptual world, conditioned world, created world, which is your true nature, the unconditioned. So you can go from the whole journey there, but never, what I try to do is to pull them all together, not think of them as something separate, that you go on a fall into the trap of thinking that it's a progressive thing, that you go from one step to the next, from the very sort of mundane, everyday experience of restlessness to the less familiar blue sky, and opening up into the unconditioned, and thinking it's a journey from one to the other. That's a big mistake. What is that you have them all together, and through your day you can go from pondering, observing, seeing, looking into your everyday conditioning and your restlessness that you find so difficult to put to rest, right the way through to just being still and to being open and going beyond all of those things. Both of those extremes can be with you on any day, one to the other, oscillate if you like, and all the features of the pillars. So don't get the idea that there's some straight line and you're making progress, because I think anybody with experience of this knows that the path to reality isn't in a straight line. You can oscillate. You can go from the crude and the obvious to the sublime and almost unimaginable. Can all be your experience in a day. So you embrace all of it and not have that sense of as I say, moving through from one side to the other, but aspiring to experience it all in one day, if you like, also that all one interconnects with the other, one leads to the next. And I've tried to pull those two, what would appear to be two quite distinct teachings or images, to pull them together into one as the human experience. And that's what I've been trying to do this week, and I think I put a lot of emphasis on the path of insight. The path of insight is something that you can. It doesn't matter where your practice is, how you're feeling, where you think you are, what you think you've achieved, what you think your limitations are, your shortcomings are, and how you feel where you are with the training, whether you think it's going well, whether it's not going, whether you're a good practitioner or a pretty useless practitioner. All of these opinions you have about yourself and about the practice, and where you happen to be today or this morning, and where you are, where you feel you are this afternoon when this afternoon comes. That whole path of insight is with you all the time, to one degree or another, whether it be very, very simple and very, well, I'll say crude, but just something that you can reflect upon, or whether you use that aspect of the training to look very deeply within yourself, which you can usually do best on the cushion. It's with you all the time. It's not something that you ever need turn off or expect to be with you at certain times and certain how you happen to be at any particular time, specific time, but rather see that it's there all of the time. So there's no excuse not to reflect, not to look in, not to know yourself without an opinion. Just see yourself, know yourself. When you walk, know you're walking. When you stand, know you're standing. When you sit, know you're sitting. And when you're lying down, know you're lying down. That's it. Know yourself, know yourself, know yourself. This is the path to liberation. But knowing yourself is not a passive exercise or a passive experience. It can be passive, but it should also be very, very dynamic. And dynamic means that it's only dynamic when you have commitment and a willingness. And you have that with you through your life, through your everyday, whatever. Then that's the Dharma. That's where you'll find the Dharma. You'll find that Dharma when you reflect. The Dharma's inside of you, waiting to show itself. And this, I've pulled this together this week, and I've put specific emphasis on the insightful aspect, because it's very important. But I've tried to pull it all together for you, and I hope you've managed to get a grip. Maybe you've already had a grip, but also like I was saying, that because you have a grip doesn't mean to say that you can't get to know it even more. That's how I understand. I don't need to read that anymore. I don't need to ponder that anymore. I've done that bit. And never go there. Any aspect of the path is always about cultivating, always about polishing, always about seeing ever deeply into something so subtle. Your imagination could never even begin to get anywhere near how subtle it is. And I don't care how intelligent you are, or how clever you think you are, or even how clever you are in worldly terms. The Dharma's not for the world, and it's not for your developed intelligence. That's why you should never get to that point of saying, I've done it. Always take it as a stepping stone to the next level of that where you happen to be. So you keep the whole thing moving. You're always letting go always letting go, always aspiring, always letting go, never holding on. And well, I hope that you've got something in that message. I can only just give it to you and hope that you can grab it. And if you're not sure, we do record all of these talks. They don't cost you anything. You can go and view them any time and just run them and rerun them. And because you run it once, again, I've done that one, where's the next one? Come back to it and run it again. And get beyond this thing of trying to achieve and trying to accumulate more knowledge. You don't need a lot of knowledge. You've all got enough, actually. But what you need to do is to look ever deeper into what you've got. That's where the Dharma is. That's not the world. The world operates quite differently, but the Dharma operates quite differently. And it's not about accumulation, it's about accumulating, it's about seeing with ever greater clarity. So you've all got enough. You've all got everything there that you need. And I've just gone over it again this week for you, just to help you along a little bit more. And I don't really have much more to add to that. So I would like to open it out to you if you have queries on that, about the training, about what we've been talking about. I'm not interested in any other questions because your question is for everybody. It's not just for yourself. It's for all of us. We can all benefit from the question and the answer. But that question is about the Dharma and about your practice and how you see it, or how you have difficulty, have a blind spot or whatever. So not even interested in Buddhism and traditions and different practices and philosophy and all of these sorts of things. Great subjects though they may be. This is for our training. So that's the parameters of your question. So if anybody has something to say, I will listen. And if you can speak up, please, so that... Is there a mic in that camera? It doesn't pick up. It's all through here. This is the problem with questions and answers when we do videos, is that very often you don't get the question. And we never did get around to doing 2 mics. It just never happened. So if somebody...
I've got a question about the tool bag of tools that with insight. You've mentioned the 3 signs of being.
There's been 3 particular tools that are things that I've found very, very useful.
Is there any other tools that you've found useful to continue?
Well, I spoke all day. What specific tool? A tool is something that cuts. Yeah. Well, I say Buddhism is full of tools, all sorts of ways of looking into. But I don't know of any tools that pertain to this form of practice that we do, and not ones that I've ever used. And I think you have to be careful. If you're going to start fishing around, looking for other things, you may find that it's not wholly compatible, that it harmonises with how this path works for us. I think you have to be careful about that. Other than having this sense of being completely open and investigating and looking in and following and pondering. These are all tools. These ones just happen to be very specific ones that that are put there that do have that characteristic of slicing up what you consider to be real. But beyond that, you still have to wake up to yourself. You still have to put yourself in that position whereby you can bring those tools in. And if you're not doing the preparatory work, i.e. looking at yourself and getting to know yourself and learning to open to yourself and learning to accept yourself, learning to stay with yourself, to forbear with the reaction that you will get when you don't run away with things, that's you're coming to that place from insight, because you know that these are the tools that you're putting in place so that you can stay with yourself. They're tools, all of that. These are all features of creating the environment. So, but in terms of specific things, I think they're enough. They will cut your world up. Find one of those three that resonates with you. Maybe all three feel pretty much on par, or whether you can move from one to the other, or whether you just want to carry one with you in your meditation, in your daily life. You can carry it with you. You can look for yourself, like when you're doing the walking meditation, as I was touching on yesterday. When you're walking up and down with a completely empty mind, and you're not giving yourself instructions on how to walk. There's something, it's spontaneous that's happening there. There's something so magical that's going on. We don't even realise. We just take it for granted. But if you consider it's me, it's you, this personality, this self, well then look for the self when you're walking up and down. You can say, well, where is this self? Who is the one that's walking? That's all focusing. That's all directing you into anatta, which is one of the characteristics. Look for yourself. You're convinced it's you. You're so convinced it's you that you don't even question it. Well, of course it's me. What are you talking about? Who else is walking up and down? Well, if it's you, go and look for yourself. Put your finger on yourself. Here I am. Here, look. See how you get on. See how you get on with that. And if you can't find this person who you are convinced is doing the walking, then ask yourself, well, then who is doing the walking? What's going on here? You've never questioned that in your life. You're never taught to question it. It's never something that's ever come up in life. But when you practice the Dharma, that's exactly what you do begin to question. That's in the area of anatta, isn't it? You're looking for the self. You're looking for that which you are convinced is something that you don't even bother to have to look for. You just take it for granted. Well, okay, you take it for granted, but let's just do it anyway. Go and find yourself. In order to do that, you have to be quiet and focused and retain your attention. Have that environment. Who's doing the walking? Who's walking? Anatta. No, it's not anatta, it's me. Okay. But I'm not thinking. I'm not putting anything whatsoever into this act of walking up and down. And yet here I am walking up and down. What on earth is going on here? There you are, it's under your nose. Don't need to go any further than that. I'll say that is actually that is a tool from another tradition. Although no, from our tradition we don't make a particular point of it. Although I've said it on many times, many occasions, that who am I is very, very legitimate and fits absolutely perfectly with. It is integral actually to it actually comes from one. It's more from Korea, Hwado, but it's akin to to a koan and add that to your collection. And that's something it's always hovered around with me. The Lakshanas, those three signs of being, they are characteristics of the world that you create. Everything that you create is impermanent, suffering in its very nature, in its very fabric, and it doesn't have self-nature. Everything that you regard as being real, as being reality, and everything you regard as being reality is actually something that you make. But all of that has those three signs, has those three characteristics. But when you talk about, if you shift your focus into, well, who's doing the walking, then you are beginning to step beyond that created world. You are trapped within it, and you are certain that the answer is to be found within that world. Of course, what else do you know? But if you stay with it, that's actually a doorway, like all koans, a doorway into the unconditioned, not to the conditioned. Otherwise, they're questions that could be answered logically, but they can't be. You try to answer them logically, and when you give up, you then begin to open up to that which is the unconditioned, and the answer will come to you. That's taking you beyond the three signs of being. Will just break up your world, what you've created, and that is absolutely crucial. That has to be done because that's the blinding, that's the blinder. But you've also got that opportunity to look beyond, see if you can just see what's beyond that created world that has those three characteristics in your blue sky. So that is very much taking you, and that can really resonate with you. People are, from my understanding, people are given that the day that they walk in a monastery, and that's all they have for the rest of their life. Nothing else. How uncluttered is that? How wonderful is that? Huh? All this rubbish that we all have to... It's just, who is it? What, what could be simpler, for goodness sake? How can you possibly get confused by that? Your mind will confuse you. Who is it? There's a step beyond that. He said, when you give up with the who, it then becomes, well, then what is it? But you've got to get through the who first, because you're certain it's a person, an identity in some way. Who. But when you give up with that, and you can't find the who, you say, well, if it's not a who, then what? Then what is it? What is the what? And that will take you, in our terms, that will take you into the whole region of the blue sky, your true nature. The real answer into what's called the esoteric. And I've tossed that one out a few times over the years. I say it's especially useful when you're doing the walking meditation, because theoretically you're meant to be very undistracted and nothing for you to do except walk. Well, you have some activity going there, so you can just absolutely come to yourself, be absolutely here and now, nowhere else. What the hell's going on here? I'm not saying anything, I'm not doing anything, look. Well, there's got to be an answer there somewhere, there's got to be a reason for it. Talk about in your face, what more do you want? There you're stepping right over into the blue sky, white cloud, the white cloud where you can try to find the answer. all merges into that utter simplicity, completely expansive, no parameters, no limitations. If that's what attracts you, then you're very much at the heart of what we're doing. But for most of us, we're stuck in this blah, 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 blah. And that's what we need to break through. That's what we need to give a lot of attention to, because it's that's with us most of the day. All of the day. So look, wake up to it. See, look, see, ponder.
I seem to have come to a bit of an impasse. I think it's probably because I'm approaching it logically, I suppose. But when I ponder on who am I, clearly I'm not my scandals, because eyes, nose, and so forth. Because of course they change, and I can't be conscious of them, because they're dependent on the scandals. But then I die, and I have no recollection of a previous life, so I must be conscious.
Sorry, you die? What did you say?
I die.
You die?
Yeah. And I thought, I don't have any consciousness of a previous life, so that's where I kind of hit a wall.
I'm not following you, Michael.
I guess my belief is that I am my memories.
Who's your memories? Who, Michael?
Yes. But of course I lose those memories when I die.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I.
So what's that got to do with your training? You're just getting off in your head in with something here.
Am I?
Well, I mean, what's that got to do with your comings and goes in your everyday life and experiences and challenges?
That's the inquiry. That's the fight I've got with the inquiry.
Well, you're not inquiring into anything that's sort of real and present with you here and now. That's just going off into projecting up into the clouds with something. I mean, you want the answers to all of that, all of those things, which you will get the answers to, is not by going off like that, but just staying with your where you don't think the answer is. But it's to get to know and get to understand how you are now, and the way your mind works, and the way you're habitually caught by it, or you understand all that. You get to know that by learning to be still and learning to be open to it, and get to know it and to stay with those things. Well, as you get to know and understand how all that works, all these other things will just reveal themselves anyway. Up until then, it's just a thought and just getting into mental gymnastics, and you just go round and round in circles, and that's not going to help you where your feet are with whatever's challenging you in your daily life. This is not really, to me, this is not a practice question at all. It's not practice. So, if that's what you want to do, fair enough. But it's just it's no use to anybody or anything, that sort of stuff.
I had a question about you've been talking about insight all week, and like the insight path, it's very powerful, and when things fall away, there can be real attachment to the freedom that comes out of that. And I was just wondering if you could talk about that.
Let it go.
Yeah. You
let it go the same as you let go of everything else. I mean, the difficulty is because it's such a powerful experience, and maybe a very wonderful experience. Of course, your attachment is even greater. But it's still the same principle. You have to look at it, know you're attached, and keep saying, look, let go, let go. You've got to let go of this. However long it takes you, it's no good you carrying it around all the time and just thinking about it, and whatever you do with it, just say, look, this is Mara. This is not that. This is just a memory. Nothing real about this. It's just a memory, and I've got to let it go, because if I don't let it go, I'm stuck. And things don't mature from here as long as I'm holding on. It doesn't matter whether it's a small insight or even a great insight. You've got to. It's a simple principle. Everything you have to let go of. I don't care whether it's deep profundity or whether it's complete ignorance and stupidity. Everything has to be let go of, because when it becomes the possession, this self thing manifests and holds it, and it becomes mine. And you've got to, it can be incredibly difficult and it can take a very long time, but never mind, you just keep reminding yourself, and then just try to let it go. Bow your head and give it to the Buddha. Bow your head and just, I'm giving this up, I don't want it anymore. It's Mara. Just let it go. Give it away, give it away, give it away. What you can get from that, what you can glean from that experience is inspiration. Something that, yes, I'm on the right path. I've got a little taste or a little sighting of something which is beyond this conditioned world. And that's great. And feel inspired by that, and that's an emotional well-being. And I know from my own experience, I had a very incredibly powerful experience after, I think it was 18 months. That could have been such a. I could have started my own religion, for God's sake. Talk about attachment that could have come around that, and somehow I didn't. And I've often pondered why didn't you just grab that, because it was so amazing and so unique. All insights are unique. You'll never ever repeat one. You've had a glimpse of something, that will be it. It's a one-off. So if you get this thing, I've had it once, what fantastic! I want to get back there and do it again, and that's another expression of attachment, because it was so wonderful. That's impossible, because assuming that it's a genuine thing and not just an ego creation. Simply because reality is not an object, it's not a thing. You can't experience it, go and then come back to it, because there isn't anything to come back to, because reality isn't a thing. It's not a part of your created world. So you can't come back. Do you get me? Because there isn't anything to come back to. So a completely futile exercise, but one that just gets you more and more caught. And I've met people who want to do this, and I understand why, but they don't understand the danger. They don't understand how this works. That wanted to come back and experience, you truly got to let it go. And as I say, for me, that was, and I mean, I had in proximity my teacher anyway, and if there's any sense of attachment, I'm sure I would have had my ears boxed. But I never did. But what I got from it was just, wow. I got such a lift, an emotional lift from it. Without holding on to it, I just felt, I'm on the right, I'm getting it right, I'm on the right path here. And I found in the future, very often, when I did hit difficult times, I could reflect on that and say, well, don't worry, mate, just hang on, because, there's something greater that's just beyond this thing that's possessing you at the minute. Just hang on and just see that it will break, because there's something far greater. And that sort of sense of inspiration somehow, and that actually carried me for years. I could just, when everything seemed to be caving in, I could just stop and just, for a moment, say, look, you've had a little glimpse there and you can see all this is just nonsense. Just keep going. That I found very, very useful, but I wouldn't regard that as attachment because it was not something I carried. It's just something I could just look at occasionally when it was useful to do and then just let it go. And you've got to let go. Don't see it any differently than the most crudest of your attachments and habits that you've got. It's exactly the same thing. And you want to let go of all your other attachments. You don't like them. You don't want them. Well, you don't want these ones either. And, keep reminding yourself. I know it's very difficult, but it's the nature of the journey, You just got to... Look, the journey's very simple. Just let go. That's all it is. It's not rocket science. Just don't hold on to anything. And if you've got that principle with you, and you can keep reminding yourself, then you're not lost. You know how it works, what you've got to do. This is not complicated. Holding on to the 10,000 things. And think that some things have more value than others. Some things are worth holding on to and other things aren't holding on to. You get yourself, you'll go nuts. Let go of everything. Very simple. I can never emphasise the simplicity of this training. That's all I've ever done with you. It is not complicated. And our particular training is the simplest one. I mean, I think Dharma training is simple if you get it. But this one is the simplest kind that there can be. And that's all the message I'm giving you all the time. This is not complicated. You don't have to get lost and confused. Just remind yourself. What were you going to say?
How would you understand falling asleep in meditation? What's going on?
Falling asleep, eh? Well, there could be all sorts of reasons for that, couldn't there? One is that you actually have not had enough sleep. You could be physically tired, which tends to bring sleep on, because the body needs to rest. That's one simple answer. In terms of other answers, well, when you begin to settle yourself down, begin to let go of your distractions and the things that you chase, the things that actually keep you awake because you're running after or running away, entertaining yourself. And if there's some emotion, then you're very much awake and you're being entertained, watching a movie. But you learn to let those things go when you sit on the cushion to meditate. So the entertainment distraction is taken away from you, and you're just left. And if you don't have something then to motivate you to keep you interested, even though you're not being interested in the pictures that you once had. In other words, you get bored because you're not entertaining yourself. You don't have a, should we say, a direction with your meditation, an aspiration with your meditation. If you don't have those things, then of course you can fall asleep simply because you're bored, and you're just creating the environment for sleep anyway, which is what you do when you go to bed. You stop thinking. When you stop thinking, you fall asleep. But there could also be another one which is very interesting, is that when you do let go of your distractions and you do become still, you're also getting really quite close to yourself. Obviously you are. You're not being pulled out, you're not going out there somewhere, getting away from yourself, but actually meditation brings you closer to yourself. And one way, or what can happen there, is that when you get close to yourself, it it gets to be a little bit difficult. It may be obvious to you that being in that stillness can bring fear. That you're beginning to see yourself, beginning to expose you. You're not protecting yourself from yourself, but you're beginning to see things that you don't like. Which meditation will always take you to that place of where you're letting go of your defences. And one way that we can avoid looking at ourselves is to fall asleep. So you're not off. That's just a clever way of avoiding yourself. And I know that's very, very common. The trick is to identify what is genuine sleep and what is just a trick of Mara. I see it as a Mara. Mara's coming to take you away from getting to know yourself. Doing that all the time with all the distractions. But when you let all the distractions go, it's another way of shutting the door for you getting to know yourself. So you fall asleep. And this is where your commitment comes. You just have to determine not to fall asleep. Say, no, I'm not falling asleep. And whatever your meditation is, just have that commitment. I'm not going to fall asleep. And when the sleep comes, just look at it, be alive to it, feel it coming, look at it, retain your awareness. If you're aware, you cannot fall asleep. You may lose the edge, you may get a bit dull, but you just stay. And I know I've had these experiences, and I saw them nothing but Mara. And by golly, I had a whole stretch every single day when I was in Sri Lanka of this terrific desire to fall asleep, and I said to him, I'm not falling asleep. It's not going to happen. I'm not coming. I sleep when I go lie on that bed over there, not when I sit with my legs crossed. And I sit with my legs crossed to fall asleep. That's not part of the deal. And it was a very, what showed it to me that this can be such a Mara, is that I would absolutely determine not to fall asleep, even though, and I would just retain that awareness. However dull it got, it was always sufficient that as long as I had awareness, I wasn't going to drop off. I wasn't going to start not nodding off. And I'd stay with it and stay with it and stay with it. And then after some minutes, it would go. And I'd be as bright and as alive as I could be. And I'd go, what the hell was all that about? I was supposed to be tired, aren't I? Am I physically tired? Shouldn't I be going to sleep? But I stayed with it and I refused to give in to it. And then suddenly, there was something just gave up. And that's what showed me, for me anyway, that's one of the answers for falling asleep on the cushion. It's a way of avoiding. It's a very clever trick of Mara. Never mind about distracting you, throwing all sorts of temptations and pictures and scenarios just to get you to be caught up and kept away from yourself. If you can't do that, let's have another go. Let's get him to fall asleep. Let's bring some sleep on here. That'll do the job just as well. But, there could be real sleep. Could you genuinely want to sleep? You've got to, but I think if you have this, when you sit on the cushion, say, I'm not going to sit here and fall asleep. I'm not come here to fall asleep. You have that determination. That will steer you clear. And if you've got this desire to look at yourself and get to know yourself, you make use of that stillness. You make use of that environment that you're creating, that still, spacious environment where say parts of you can come up, where you can begin to look at parts of you and get to see yourself and get to know yourself, because it's incredibly interesting, and that will keep you awake. And if all that fails, then fall asleep, I suppose. And there you go. That's what happens. But I think there's a lot to be learnt, and there's a lot you can do about it. There's a lot to be learnt there. But it is one of the, it's a part of the package of meditation, is that it comes to all of us somehow or other.
Isn't it true that with the sleep thing, for instance, I mean, even if you haven't had enough or had as much as you normally have or you think you're supposed to have, isn't it true that if you find the energy, you can actually go quite a long way beyond what you think you can achieve? So say you think, oh, I've only had 3.5 hours sleep, that's awful, it's going to be real sleep if I'm sleepy and I'm not to bother. Isn't it true that if you really try, you can find a lot more energy?
Of course you can. If you determine that, I'm not going to go to sleep, I don't care if you haven't slept for a day or 2 days, you can stay awake. If somebody was holding a gun to your head and said, look, if you fall asleep, I'm going to shoot you, how long will you stay awake for? That's what you did when you got on the cushion. So, oh my God. James has sneaked up behind me and he's got this revolver and he's got orders to shoot to kill on sight. See how that keeps you awake. It's very dangerous, that man. You can say that.
I always think there's a lot of energy down here, I guess, in the heart, and if you just find it can.
Well, I think that's a part of you in a conviction. You're in a commitment. This commitment is not willful. It's not a willful thing. It's just something within you. I'm here to get to the bottom of this, and nothing's going to stop me. Just a quiet determination. And when things come your way, just I'm not going there. No. Just come back and whatever it is that you happen, whatever your meditation happens to be at that time, come back to it. Come back to it. No. I'll sleep later. Have your time to sleep. This is not the time to sleep. I don't need it anyway, but even if I do need it, not now. No. This is, this is your commitment. Where's your commitment with these things? And if you don't have any commitment, then you will crash, won't you? You'll fall asleep incredibly quickly. But I think a lot of it is avoiding yourself. Whether you're aware of it or not, you're probably not aware of it, but it's a damn good way of shutting you down. But you've got to work through all of these things. And I say, just my study of sleep, I have to say, I pictured the whole thing of sleep. It is very, very much a habit. You say you need 8 hours to sleep, 9 hours to sleep every night. Oh, I've got to have 8 hours, got to have 9 hours or whatever. And you end up in you needing that. But then, no, I don't. I need 6 hours sleep every day. And then you train yourself and you have 6 hours sleep, and that's perfectly fine. And you're an adult. There's nothing wrong with you. Actually, I think it is a habit. And I think most of us, if we really wanted to, we can train ourselves to sleep very, very few hours in the night and be perfectly okay. It's a habit. You get into a habit, you get into a routine. And that's another thing you've got to deal with this whole thing. Because a third of our life we're unconscious, aren't we? So it's not a small thing in our life. But if you're unconscious, you're never going to get to know yourself. So do away with it. It's a Mara. There are plenty of people who sleep 2 or 3 hours a day when they're doing this business. In a monastery. They're on the cushion meditating all the time and not sleeping. They've trained themselves out of all of that habit. You can. How's it gone?
Well, I'm just not sure what I want to ask it. in terms of the fetter of fixed self-view, when you break it, can there still be a story of self which continues to come up? So much so that, in a sense, you've forgotten you've broken the fetter, or are you kidding yourself?
In a word, yes.
To which bit?
That even though you break the fetter of self-view, as you describe it, and you see it and you know it to be a complete fiction, it can still arise. You would like to think maybe not to the degree that it used to, but it can arise, and it can very much have a big impact on your life, and continue to do so for a very long time. Even though paradoxically, and it is a paradox, there ain't no self. It's a paradox. But the self comes into being when circumstances present themselves, when conditions present themselves. It then becomes an environment that this self view can manifest. When those conditions fall away, there is no self. There is and there isn't. So the reality is it's when the conditions are there that there is this sense of a self. But like I say, if it was permanent, and we all like to think we are, then of course it's there all the time, whatever the conditions are. But that's not true. When we're still on the cushion and we let go of all of these things, there is no self. There's no self. You think somehow, well, I'm still here. Well, you are still here. But what's here is not the self. You think you've got yourself into such a state, you think everything is self. That there is nothing outside of my experience that is not self. Well, that's not true, actually. This thing called self comes into being when the conditions present themselves. And when the conditions change, i.e. you still your mind, as an example of not having the conditions, there is no self. But you don't die, you don't pass out, what's there is not self. What's there is not a deluded thing. This is where you can then contemplate insight. When you're free of that ignorance there, you're completely free of any distortion. That's why we become still, in order that we can develop insight, because there is no self there. But when you let that environment go and all the chattering comes back, and attachment that may come for what revealed itself in that time, then you've got this sense of self, and then it comes, it manifests, and then it pollutes and grasps and creates all sorts of problems. But even that's how it is for all of us anyway. But even if you go beyond the self view, truly, genuinely break that fetter of a self view, and think that you've cracked it, as people do, you've only just begun, actually, as it happens. Rather than get up there and exhort to everybody and become a teacher and say, I've done it, here I am, you've only just started. You've got to deal with the paradox. And the habit, it's a habit. Habits have no, they're not a thing. A habit isn't a thing that sits over here waiting. A habit is when the conditions are right, when the environment is right for it, it will just, it appears. It's like an energy that will appear. And when the conditions change, the energy goes. It's not there. And that self-view, it's the strongest view that you're going to have. That's not going to give up just because you know that it's not real. This is the the paradox that defeats most people. They think it's all black and white. It's not black and white at all. You've got to see that it's a paradox. It's where the whole paradoxical nature of what you are, how you're made up, the paradoxical nature of everything within you. That's when you begin to see, you begin to get to know it, you begin to get comfortable with it. This is the way it is, and then you can begin to turn your back on it, not buy into it when it comes. Because there's a part of you that sees it and knows it, and it says, no, not going there anymore. And so it begins to deflate, it begins to lose its power. But it's still there, and if you're not careful, it'll have you. So, even if you do have these experiences, don't think you've ever, you cracked it. It's not that simple.
Aloka, what benefit, if any, have your dreams had in insight, experience and use in, say, the dharmic workspace?
I mean, dreams can be very important, but they can also, this is, like most things, it's never that simple. They can also be very confusing, very deceiving, very alluring. I think you can read all sorts of things into dreams. Well, you can read anything into a dream. Pick any dream up, you can turn it into whatever you want to make it. Especially if it's a strong dream, a lucid dream in some way, a dream that you don't forget when you wake up in the morning. I mean, I forget all my dreams. Just occasionally the odd one sticks and you think, that's significant. And then you interpret it. But that can just make you even more confused. I don't know. I mean, I think dreams do come along from time to time that really are significant, that are pointers, that is showing you something. Showing you what? I don't know. It might be showing you something that's real, showing you reality, but also it could be showing you something that you need to really look at within inside of yourself that you've not really seen before. You've got a blind spot. So it's something that you need to... But I think you have to be very careful. You have to be very careful. It's so easy, because it's a dream world, isn't it? And it's a way of avoiding yourself again. It's like watching films, and getting lost in the film, and in Wonderland, like children's stuff. What is it, Alice in Wonderland stuff? Rather be in Alice in Wonderland than be here, where your feet are, because it's not very nice here. It's nice to be in one of these fairy tales. Much rather live in there. And I think you have to be careful with them. My own experience. Yeah, I've had very, very significant dreams. So significant that I wouldn't necessarily call them dreams. I mean, they're just very, very strong and come at a particular time that I found useful. Frightening. I used to do some dream analysis with my ex-teacher, who apparently studied these things and was very, very interested in dreams and analysing them. And I learnt so much just observing people relating their dreams and how they would be interpreted. And I never felt comfortable. I think you could interpret this dream in any way that you like, actually. I'll tell you what I think the most important thing in a dream is, never mind the pictures, the story, the experience, is how you feel. Do you feel good? Do you feel frightened? Do you feel absolutely elated? Is it wonderful? Is it a happy experience? Your whole emotional... I always think that's your starting point. Never mind the pictures. By golly, you can I mean, there are people who interpret these things. And I bet you there's a lot of conflict between these people. Oh no, it doesn't mean that, it means this. Oh no, it doesn't, it means this. I don't know, I think you have to be tread very wary. That was my conclusion after watching all this, because I basically just observed. I wasn't really encouraged to say much about my stuff. But observing, I thought, by golly, I'd stay away from this. I don't know what good it's going to really do you. You know, to break it up and say it means this, it's symbolic of this, and you should be looking at this and you should be looking at that. That's what your dream is telling you to do. I don't know. I don't think it's necessary. If it feels good, great, enjoy it. If you're flying through the air, take it as being an experience of liberation. But that doesn't mean say you're free. It means that you've had a lovely experience of flying. You know? I mean, it could well, on a deep level, it means something's broken, but you're not going to speculate about that. That's my my feelings about it all. And looking at my own training, and there have been times when they have been very significant, but they've been of a different quality, come at a different time. That I wouldn't mix them up with just normal dreaming at all. But be careful you don't get sidetracked by all of that, because it's literally taking you into a dream world. You maybe don't like to see where your feet are now. You'd much rather be living in that lovely dream you had last night and get away from where your feet are. I think that's a great danger with these things. You don't like where our feet are, so I'll live in my dreams that I've been having. Be very careful. That's I think that's going to have to do us for today. Thank you.